They went against the action hero tropes established in the late 70s and obviously throughout the 1980s. And people responded to that very well, along with, the world they created, along with the world of ghosts and, ancient gods and fantasy science and marshmallow kaiju. But the franchise, in my opinion, the franchise has never been able to move past that original film. It has wallowed in its references and member berries and nostalgia for all of its other films for 4 decades now. How many times do we have to see Slimer, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, Gozer, the Demon Dogs over and over and over again, reusing the same bits of dialogue? I wanted to kind of talk about this, chat. I wanted to provide this with more depth because it's something I've been thinking about for quite some time. And, honestly, at this point, I just believe that Ghostbusters as a franchise is vapid and devoid of originality. We just looked at the, latest trailer for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. And, I did my trailer reaction earlier. And I encourage you actually to please, check out that reaction, kind of get my more thoughts on the trailer itself. But I just want to take a moment to just explain why I'm just not excited for this film in more detail, like in any capacity, and why I'm not a Ghostbusters fan just outside of the first movie and its animated shows, which I've seen to a degree. First of all, I think the reason why the original Ghostbusters worked so well in the 80s was because it was doing something original for that time. So many genre films, whether it be action, fantasy, science fiction, featured the badass action star, mowing down bad guys, the Arnold Schwarzeneggers, the Sylvester Stallone types, doing what they do best. Not dismissing those films at all, their specific films, that they made some great stuff that, I enjoy, that we all enjoy, that we've done watch parties for. They made some fun movies during that time period, some genre-defining films. But we were getting a lot of the, that same type of content in the action and fantasy sci-fi genres. And then Ghostbusters comes along and twists all that on top of its head. Instead of the muscle-bound badass super soldiers and assassins, or the cop that doesn't follow the rules, we have these schlubby, dorky scientists battling ghosts to various levels of success. Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray and Ernie Hudson, although he's definitely the most in shape out of all of them. We're not action stars. They were smoking and joking and eating Twinkies throughout that entire film. They went against the action hero tropes established in the late 70s and obviously throughout the 1980s. And people responded to that very well, along with, the world they created, along with the world of ghosts and, ancient gods and fantasy science and marshmallow kaiju. But the franchise, in my opinion, the franchise has never been able to move past that original film. It has wallowed in its references and member berries and nostalgia for all of its other films for 4 decades now. How many times do we have to see Slimer, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, Gozer, the Demon Dogs over and over and over again, reusing the same bits of dialogue, even referencing the song that some people have told me that is actually within the world of Ghostbusters. I didn't know that, but I thought originally it wasn't supposed to exist within the world of Ghostbusters, but fair enough. In any case, in regards to all the other references and all the other member berries and nostalgia, it's just, to me, very vapid and dull. The cartoons, at the very least, move the franchise forward with the real Ghostbusters and the extreme Ghostbusters, like the real Ghostbusters. And again, it's been quite some time since I've seen it, so correct me if I'm wrong, but that acted as a continuation, as a sequel to the original movie. It followed all those characters, working various cases, busting goats, capturing ghosts, fighting new enemies along the way, for however many seasons that it lasted for, and clearly was successful at it. And then you had all right, well, you still want to kind of keep this going, so let's have it be like the next generation, which is the big thing, in the obviously in the 80s and the 90s, something like with Star Trek, if you will. You want to keep this property alive, so let's do the next generation, new heroes, but set in this world where they had the extreme Ghostbusters, right? Where you had Harold Ramis's character, Egon, where he became like a professor at a university or something, and like all the other Ghostbusters retired. He's pretty much retired from ghosts, busting, but he's now teaching classes on ghosts and supernatural stuff, and he gets these 4 students that inevitably have to bust ghosts and bring back the Ghostbusters as well. And I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that was a little different. And then inevitably, the original Ghostbusters came back, I think probably towards the end of that first season or whatever. I think it only lasted like a season or 2 seasons or something. But it was a cool concept. I really liked that, right? It was doing new things. Both things were doing, like, it had all the stuff that worked about the original movie, but it wasn't afraid to push it in new directions. Have new scenarios and villains and character moments, or even new characters. I think that's what made those things, why they stood out in my mind, and why I'm like, other than the original movie, why I like those things, at least what I was exposed to. But with Frozen Empire and many of the other entries in this, in this franchise, it's just using fan service and nostalgia in place of a script with originality or any forward momentum. The franchise seems petrified of moving forward in any capacity. Outside of, fear, I can only imagine it's because of the fear of its very passionate, fan base, who only seem to want the same thing over and over and over again. And maybe those fans are sick of this regression too. I don't want to, paint with a wide brush or anything. That's not what I want to do. But I know a number of Ghostbusters fans. I saw them on social media who love this trailer because it just had Slimer in it, or a little Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Even though I didn't care for the series, at this point, I still feel like we could do so much more with it, and also capitalize on the 40 years of Ghostbuster content, capitalize on the 40 years of Ghost content that we've had in pop culture. Whether it be movies or TV shows or even those fake reality ghost hunting shows. I mean, hell, parody stuff like James Wan's Conjuring verse. It's very deserving of parody and critique at this point. To a degree, I understood why they did all the nostalgia with Afterlife. Since it featured the returning cast and dealt with Egon's family. I didn't think it did the nostalgia well at all, especially in the last half. But I was like, okay, fine. I get it. I understand why you're doing it at the very least, even though I don't think it was used that well. But why in this movie too? Other than just, I guess, sheer laziness and capitalizing on the incessant need to be reminded of all the things that we were originally seen, all the things that were originally done in the first Ghostbusters 40 years ago. I'll watch and I'm going to review the film, but I'm not excited with this movie. In any capacity, and my expectations at this point are subterranean for this film at this point. So yeah, I just want to take a moment and just kind of say that and to get that out there, because I've noticed that so far the fan reaction to this trailer online across multiple. I think I'm the most negative voice out there in regards to this trailer. All these different YouTube content creators and trailer reactors and anywhere else in between, people that review movies, people that critique films or whatever it might be, they're all very positive about this, and I'm just feeling. I feel like I'm in a fucking. I feel like I'm alone in my issue. I'm a hater. As Biggie Smith says. Yeah, I'm a hater, I guess. So yeah, I just really didn't care for this at all. The direction what this franchise has been going in for, really decades at this point. But obviously, more recently, like even the 2016 film, like it was doing the same thing. It was like, hey, remember this, remember that? Like all these references, like just stop it. Why are you doing that? It's more distracting. They can't get away from it. It's like we can move on. We don't have to have the Stay Puft Man in every Ghostbusters movie. Why are we constantly bringing him back up? It was amazing in the first film. It was great. It was just like no one fucking expected it. I was like, wait, what? And it worked. But why do we gotta? It takes away from that original scene. Now it's like, well, he's gonna come back like 3 other fucking times. Like he came back in 2016. He was back in Afterlife, and he's gonna be back here again. It's like. Why? Why is he back all the time? Oh, it doesn't make any sense, but let me continue to see what you guys are saying. I'm curious. Oh, let's see here. You can say the same thing about damn Batman. If I fucking see another pearl necklace break, I'll jump at the... Oh, that's one of the things. That's why I don't want to see his origin anymore. Like, I don't need to see that origin. Of course. There's definitely stuff like please do not. I mean, across all different properties. Like I don't need to be reminded of that Batman's parents died in an alleyway and they were, his mother in the pearl necklace. Like that kind of stuff needs to stop. It's like please stop doing that.